from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Good evening. This is the National News Broadcast coming to you live from the Rupavahini studios. Bringing your stories for today, I'm Shara Masquinius.
I'm Charita Viniparachi, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news. A 7-member committee has been appointed to investigate into the recent incidents of the health sector. A recorded number of paddy lands have been cultivated in this Jala season after a period of 10 years. The US Treasury Secretary says the debris structuring process in Sri Lanka will be completed soon. 100,000 Russian tourists have arrived in the island during the past 9 months. Ratnapura High Court declared a verdict for a case occurred 26 years ago. Floods in South Korea have claimed over 40 lives. Sri Lanka won a bronze medal in the World Championship Para-Athlete Tournament.
Now for those and other stories in detail, starting off with local news. The United States expects Sri Lanka's debt treatment to be finalized.
US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that the debt treatments for Ghana and Sri Lanka will be discussed and completed without delay. She was speaking on the sidelines of a G20 Finance Ministers Summit in India. Sri Lanka and Ghana defaulted on their international debt last year, roughly 2 years after Namibia defaulted. US Treasury Secretary Yellen said that the United States will push for debt restructuring during a G20 finance meeting. She also expressed her willingness to collaborate with China on mutual interests, including debt restructuring for emerging economies and other global challenges. Her remarks come after a high-stake China visit to ease tensions between the two nations. During the visit, she emphasized the importance of both countries working together to address global challenges. US Treasury Secretary Yellen said that the United States will also seek to increase financial assistance for war-torn Ukraine.
The Director General of Health Services has appointed a 7-member committee to conduct an investigation into the recent incidents of drug allergies and problems in the health sector occurred recently. Director General of Health Services Consultant Dr. Asela Gunawardena says that the committee was appointed under the recommendations of the Minister of Health. Director of Medical Research Institute Dr. Dedunu Dias is the chairperson of the committee. Professor Chandima Jeevandara, Professor Priyadarshini Galappati, Dr. Senitha Liyanage, Professor Nitushi Samaranayaka and Professor S.S.C. Varnakulasurya and Dr. Philip H. Lee are the other members. In an announcement, the Health Ministry has ordered a report over this matter within 3 weeks. Meanwhile, a protest was held in front of the Ministry of Health over the medicines imported to the country. Members of the civil organizations, public organizations and trade unions participated at the protest. Trade Union Collective of the Health Service also engaged in protest in front of the National Hospital today. The Government Medical Officers Association says the authorities intervened to solve the existing crisis situation in the health sector without delay. Secretary to the Government Medical Officers Association, Dr. Haritha Alutge, said the authorities must take actions to allay the fears and suspicion of the general public towards the health system in the country. They must also be skillful to manage these activities in order to restore the public confidence placed on the health sector. A 4-month-old infant in Kuliapitia area has died after injecting a vaccine. The Family Health Service Association expressed their views over this death at a press briefing held today. Meanwhile, Anuradhapura General Hospital has denied the reports published recently that a patient has died due to medicines in this hospital. Sri Lanka Medical Association says that all medical officers in all hospitals are committed to provide proper treatments to patients.
And meanwhile, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif extended his gratitude to President Ranil Wickremesinghe for his support in closing the recent $3 billion agreement from the IMF. In a recent telephone conversation, the Pakistani Premier had acknowledged the role played by Sri Lankan as a friend as well as a well-wisher of Pakistan. He commended Sri Lanka's role for regional peace and prosperity, expressed in confidence that Pakistan and Sri Lanka would successfully come out of the current economic difficulties. Reciprocating the Pakistan Prime Minister's sentiments of goodwill, President Wickremesinghe had said Pakistan is a close friend of helping friends is friendship. President appreciated Prime Minister Sharif's efforts in prevalent difficult situation and felicitated him on reaching an agreement with the IMF. On the occasion of the Pakistan Premier's meeting with Managing Director IMF Kristalina Georgieva, President stressed that the IMF should extend their assistance to Pakistan to overcome the economic crisis. And meanwhile, Minister Mahinda Amaravira says that 512,000 hectares of paddylands have been cultivated in this Yala season after 10 years.
The minister attributed this development to the government's new policy of fertilizer. Many farmers give up farming activities during the past period due to the ban of chemical fertilizer. After President Ranil Wickremesinghe came into office, a decision was taken to import chemical fertilizer again. In addition, prices of fertilizer was also reduced considerably. A voucher system was also introduced for the convenience for the farmers. Farmers are now able to obtain required amount of chemical fertilizer free of charge. At present, the briefing was held at the President's Media Centre today on the progress of the year. The Minister of Agriculture said the farmers have cultivated a recorded amount of lands due to these reasons. Minister Mahinda Amaravira said the country's circumstances were dire when the new government take over the country. Farmers protested on the roads demanding fertilizer. Numerous individuals, both inside and outside of the political sphere, have criticised these actions. They have alleged that imported fertilizer to be substandard and harvests to be poor. There are still plenty of initiatives to dissuade farmers. Despite what they claim, the farmers have returned to their farms. In addition to the current subsidies, steps are being taken to provide subsidies in the cultivation of other crops. As a result of the new fertilizer policy of the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, 512,000 hectares of paddy fields were cultivated in the Yala season after 10 years, as the Minister of Agriculture Mahinda Amaravira said. The minister added that 80% of the nation's agricultural production is expected to be produced by 2025 as a part of President Ranil Wickremesinghe's strategy to modernize the agricultural industry.
The awarded Nilame of the Sri Dalada Maligava Pradeep Nilangadal says that talks will be held with the relevant parties regarding the payment of estimated electricity bill for the period of Kandy Asala Festival. Ceylon Electricity Board has estimated a bill over 13.29 million rupees for the Kandy Asala Festival. Chief Electrical Engineer of Kandy has informed that Sri Dalada Maligava to pay the relevant bill before the commencement of the Asala Festival. When the national television inquired about this matter, the authorities said that this bill is relating to Sri Dalada Maligava, Siv Mahadevala, Municipal Council areas and the Kandy bus stand premises. The awarded Nilame says that talks should be held with all relevant authorities in these areas. He also said that talks are yet to be started. The number of Russian tourists arrived in the country during the past 9 months exceeded 100,000 mark today with the arrival of 298 Russian tourists to the island.
A special ceremony was held at the Katnayake airport to welcome this group of tourists. They arrived in the island by Su-288 Aeroflot flight this morning. The welcome ceremony was organized by Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau and the Airport Aviation Authority. The ceremony was held under the patronage of Russian ambassador in Sri Lanka, Levan Zagarayan, chairman of the Airport Aviation Services Company, Major General G.H. Chandrasiri, and former Sri Lankan ambassador in Russia, Udayanga Veeratunga. Direct flights between Russia and Sri Lanka recommenced from the 10th of October last year. Since then, over 100,000 Russian tourists have arrived in the country by Aeroflot, Azur and Red Wings Airlines. From these tourists, Sri Lanka has earned a foreign exchange worth $150 million worth US dollars.
I also would like to express my gratitude to the authorities of the airport, to Sri Lankan tourist organizations for organizing such a beautiful ceremony to welcome Russian tourists, and they were surprised and just they didn't expect it. Anyway, we know and that they will have a good time, and Sri Lanka is a sort of paradise and very good image in my country. That's why a lot of Russians, they dream to come here to have a rest and to just to visit your resorts, beaches, and not only beaches but also your beautiful sightseeings, especially in the central part of the country, your very famous temples, Buddhist temples. So I have no doubt that they will leave your country with very good expressions.
100,000 tourists from Russia, direct flights. Actually, starting from 2022 October, 10th of October, we bring the 314 flights from Russia, from Moscow and other 4 cities. And altogether, we bring 100,298 passengers. That's a big task for us, but we planning to, starting from October, bring every week 20 flights from Russia. Task because all the flights we are bringing 777 or 330 flights, because every flight, the Mattala we are bringing the 400 people, and here around the 300 people. And we are planning starting from not only Russia and Armenia and Belarus and Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. Every country, 2 flights for week. That's also very big.
Farmers now focus special attention to cultivate paddy using organic fertilizer, and a group of such farmers were honored with presidential awards recently. 3 farmers of Saruketa Farmers Organization in Ridhikama movement in Nambalanthada was honored for having maximum harvest in the Maha season of 2022 and 2023. They have cultivated the paddy variety titled T362. These farmers had used organic fertilizer only for their cultivations. They have also conducted vegetable cultivations using organic fertilizer only. The first place was won by farmer K.J.D. Vijayasekara for obtaining a harvest of 215 bushels of acre. P. Abhay Singha claimed the second place with 210 bushels per acre. The third place was claimed by Mala Paranagama, getting a harvest of 205 bushels per acre. And meanwhile, the Supreme Court today dismissed 3 fundamental right violation petitions filed by 3 individuals without consideration.
The petitioners have pointed out that their fundamental rights were violated as they were arrested and produced before courts during a protest campaign in front of the private residence of the former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on the 31st of March later. The Supreme Court issued this order after consideration of facts submitted by the Senior State Counsel Shaminda Vikrama, who appeared for the Attorney General. The petitioners have cited IGP OIC of the Midihana Police and the Commander of the Police STF and several others as respondents. The Ratnapura High Court sentenced 7.5-year rigorous imprisonment to former chairman of the Ratnapura Pradesh Sabha, Sudha Disanaika, a member of the Ranavaka Haluarachi and several others today. This verdict was declared as they were convicted the charge of setting fire to houses and properties of the UNP members at the Nalanda Allavala assassination incident in 1977. The Supreme Court ordered today to summon several fundamental right petitions for consideration on the 19th of this month. These petitions have been filed by a group including former chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, requesting the decision taken by the Ceylon Electricity Board to revise electricity tariff to be declared null and void. The petition was summoned before a panel of judges including Preeti Padman Surasena and Mahinda Samayavardhana. The High Court today ordered to re-summon the case filed against former Minister Vimal Veeravansa on the 9th of August. Former Minister Veeravansa was accused of failing to reveal how he earned assets and wealth amounting to 75 million rupees during his tenure as a minister. The case was summoned before the Colombo High Court Judge Navaratna Marasinha today.
And meanwhile, a chaotic situation was occurred among the employees of the State Phosphate Company in Ippavala today. This was occurred when the State Minister Chamara Sampath visited the company today, and a group of employees informed the State Minister about frauds and corruptions conducted by the administration of the company. The employees pointed out that the company has experienced a loss cost of over 5 million rupees by importing unnecessary spare parts for grinding machinery. They pointed out that the minister that these unnecessary spare parts have not also been returned by the administration. Minister Chamara Sampath inquired the supplies of the company about the machinery that cannot be used. The supplies officer said that they made full payment for the purchase and they got to know that the specific spare parts cannot be used once they've received the consignment. He further said that the serial numbers are different than they order placed. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the Lanka Phosphate Company, Sandhya Bevala, says that as the entire amount for the spare parts has been paid to China, they will not be taken back. Then the State Minister instructed her to take measures to indirect the culprits. The minister demanded the supplies officer to take steps to use the imported machinery immediately. He said that these types of irregularities cannot be taken place in the future. Minister Chamara Sampath further mentioned that the people of this country accuse the politicians of the irregularities and corruptions. Their houses were burnt down. However, the officials also must realize that current systems they follow must be changed towards the betterment.
Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena says that the country has experienced an immeasurable loss owing to the fact that the development projects were interpreted according to a political agenda. The minister made these remarks addressing the media yesterday after a function.
Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that hereafter Sri Lanka will get loans up to a certain amount that can be repaid. For this purpose, the country has to enter into many agreements internationally with many restrictions. Hereafter, whatever the government come into power, they cannot conduct financial management according to their will. These buses have been provided under the Indian credit line. The government is confident that the country will receive loans to carry out development programs again after the debris restructuring program. This function was also held to deploy a new bus to Ihala Udava, Kegol Road after 14 years. And meanwhile, several political parties have organized electoral meetings in various areas in the island. The Palmadul electoral meeting of the Sri Lanka Podujana Perubana was held yesterday under the patronage of Ministers Pavitra Wanyarachi, Janaka Wakumbara and Premaral Jayasekara. The Nigambo electoral meeting of the National People's Power was held yesterday, headed by JVP General Secretary Tilwin Silva. Damadeni Electoral Youth Conference and establishment of the Balabandale of the Samagi Janabala Vege was held under the patronage of Parliamentarian Kavitha Jabardena. The UNP's Kotte Electoral Balabandala meeting was held at the Sirikota Party headquarters under the patronage of National Organizer of the UNP, Sagala Ratnayaka. This meeting has been organized by Kotte UNP Organizer Dinesh Vidanapathirana.
And now let's take a look at a few local news in brief. New commander of the Air Force, Air Marshal Udeni Rajapaksa, met Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena at the Prime Minister's office today. This was a traditional call-up for the Air Force commander to the Prime Minister. He offered a souvenir to the Prime Minister as well. Meanwhile, a felicitation ceremony was held for the new Air Force commander Udeni Rajapaksa at Ananda College, Colombo. He's the first Air Force commander created by Ananda College. The felicitation ceremony was organized by Past Students Association. The Committee of Parliamentary Affairs has decided to submit a proposal to appoint a special parliamentary committee to the Parliament. Accordingly, this special committee will investigate the incidents of violation of privileges of parliamentarians and present appropriate recommendations to the Parliament. A motorcyclist who entered into the Southern Expressway without permission has been arrested. He had entered into the highway through Dodangoda interchange and attempted to ride his bike towards Valipanna. Police said that the suspect was under influence of liquor at that time. He was a resident of Madhugama area. Candy correspondent of the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation, EMW Ekanayaka, passed away. His remains are now lying at Pichamalwatta area in Gurudeniya. Final rites will be held at the Madapatana crematorium in Ampitiya at 6 p.m. tomorrow. He has been serving as the Candy correspondent of its LRC for over 30 years.
A plastic recycling centre supported under the US aid was declared open in Kaduvela. The centre was opened as a pilot initiative to improve standards in plastic waste collection and apply environment health, the safety best practices. Accordingly, the first of 4 plastic recycling centres was opened by the Kaduvela Municipal Council in Tatikamur. Deputy Chief of the Mission of the US Embassy in Colombo, Douglas Honek, and Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, were present at this occasion. The centre expected to sort, clean and well off crush large quantities of plastic in the municipal areas for commercial recycling. US aid support provided essential machinery and equipment including a crusher and a baler machine to the recycling centre. The workers also received safety equipment such as first aid kits, personal protective equipment and fire extinguishers. The model pilot in Kaduvela Municipal Council area will be replaced in goal in the coming months to promote sustainable waste management, foster the integration of informal waste collectors into a formal system and create a cleaner and a more environmentally friendly country.
The third Joint Trade and Investment Committee meeting between Sri Lanka and Australia was held at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Colombo recently. The fourth round of the Foreign Office bilateral consultations and the second strategic maritime dialogue were also held between the two delegations. First Assistant Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Trade of Australia, Gary Cohen, led the delegation from Australia at the meetings. During the discussions, new avenues for increased institutional cooperation in the defence, agriculture, cybersecurity and education sectors were identified. Both sides agreed to work together to strengthen regional cooperation, including through the Indian Ocean Rim Association. Discussions also took place on strengthening trade and investment ties. That's a look at local news. Stay with us. We'll bring you the latest on the South Korean floods. Stay with us.
Prima Kutumi Fantamai.
Now, the death toll from days of torrential rain in the South Korea has risen to 40, including a dozen people found dead in a submerged underpass.
South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol today blamed the authorities' failure to follow disaster response rules. Deluges have pummeled the central and southern regions since Thursday as the rainy season that started in late June reaches its peak. The South Korean authorities have also reported 9 people missing and 34 injured across the nation. 12 deaths, including 3 bodies found overnight, occurred in a tunnel in Cheongguk. Vehicles 16, including a bus, were swamped by a flash flood on Saturday after a river levee collapsed. The incident fueled questions over South Korea's efforts to prevent and respond to flood damage. Some divers who use the road regularly blamed the government for failing to ban access to the underpass, even though the floods were widely forecast.
An Australian sailor who survived 2 months in the Pacific Ocean by eating raw fish and drinking rainwater is stable, according to the physicians. Sydney resident Tim Shaddock, who is 51 years of age, and his dog Bella left Mexico for French Polynesia in April, but their boat was damaged by a storm several weeks later. They were rescued by a trawler this week after a helicopter spotted them. The doctor aboard the tuna trawler said that the man had normal vital signs. Shaddock embarked on his more than 6,000-kilometer long voyage from Mexico City of La Paz, but soon became stranded after his vessel's electronics were cut off by bad weather. It left the sailor and his dog drifting in the vast and hostile North Pacific Ocean. They were finally found off Mexico's coast 2 months later.
Moving to Russia, Russia has notified the United Nations, Turkey and Ukraine over the refusal to redeem a crucial grain deal. The grain deal allowed Ukraine to export grain through the sea, the Black Sea. Russian authorities said that the agreements had reached a de facto end today. The deal let cargo ships pass through the Black Sea from the ports of Odessa, Kronomask and Yuski, but Moscow said it would return to the agreement if its conditions were met. Russian President Vladimir Putin had a long complaint that parts of the deal allowing the export of Russian food and fertilizer had not been honored. Russia also repeatedly complained that Western sanctions were restricting its own agricultural exports. Turkish President Recep Erdogan said today he believed that President Putin was want to continue the agreement and that they would discuss the renewal of the deal when they meet in person the next month. The grain deal is important as Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of sunflower, maize, wheat and barley.
Prima Katami Fantamai.
And we're getting ready to bring you the latest in the world of sports. Today is the second day of the first test between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. At the stumps of today, Pakistan were 221 runs for the loss of 5 wickets in their first innings, as Sri Lanka scored 312 runs in their first innings.
When the match started in goal today, Sri Lanka were 242 runs for 6 wickets in the first innings. Dhananjay De Silva scored 122 runs, recording his 10th test century. Shansar Freddy, Nazim Shah and Abrab Ahmed played 3 wickets each. Abdullah Shafiq and Imam ul Haq opened the Pakistan innings today. The first 5 wickets of Pakistan were out in 101 runs. However, Shaud Shakil out 69 and Argun Salbert not out 61 managed to build up the Pakistan innings in Prabhat Jayasuriya claimed 3 Pakistani wickets.
Now, Dinesh Priyantha was able to win a bronze medal at the World Championship Para-Athlete Tournament held in France. He won this medal at the 46 javelin throw event.
Dinesh Priyantha achieved a length of 65.38 meters. Indian players won both gold and silver medals of the event, and however the world record of this event is owned by Dinesh Priyantha when he achieved a target of 67.79 meters at the Tokyo Paralympic Games in 2020. This is the 3rd World Championship medal won by Dinesh Priyantha.
He's got the next 60 seconds to put that to rights.
With a championship record before that was broken by his compatriot. Good.
The team of Sri Lankan players who won medals at the Commonwealth weightlifting tournament arrived at the island yesterday. The Sri Lankan men and women players won a gold medal, 3 silver medals and 4 bronze medals at the tournament held in New Delhi. Carlos Alcaraz defeated 7-time champion Novak Djokovic to claim his first Wimbledon title. It was the second major for the 20-year-old Spaniard following his US Open title last year, as he became Wimbledon's 3rd youngest men's championship.
Prima Katami Fantamai.
That's it. That's a look at Rupavahini News for tonight. Thanks a lot for joining us. Take care.
Good night.